Hello, beautiful creative people. Thanks so much for joining me for another art journaling conversation. I'm Kiala Givehand, your creative tour guide for howtoartjournal.com. In this interview, I'm chatting with Tori Weyers, aka Draw Riot. Tori's fine art and keen eye for design is one of the things that makes her mixed media and abstract painting some of my favorite art. I admire her passion for creating and maintaining a daily art practice. Her art has a rich visual narrative, strong composition, and she always picks really unique subject matter, like the month of robots that she draws every year. Not only is she an amazing artist, but Tori also teaches mixed media, painting, and printmaking at the Indianapolis Art Center, as well as many different in-person and online workshops and classes. You can find her teaching in my year-long course, The Journey Within, in December. One of the things that really drew me to Tori's work is her 365-day practice of drawing and creating art in her tiny but chunky moleskine. I love it. This year, I got to meet Tori in person, and it was a treat. We talked about everything from showing work in a gallery to art supplies to fountain pens and cutting down on the sugar intake in our daily lives. So if you're not following Tori, you're going to want to. So head on over to her online spaces and make sure you are following her. She's full of inspiration, from her blog to her new YouTube series and her Instagram feed. Tori's art will have you picking up a paintbrush in no time. So grab yourself some tea and let's chat with Tori. Tori, welcome. Thank you so much for joining. I am thrilled to be talking to you in front of people or recording it for people because you and I have had some time one-on-one and you're just a delight. And I love talking to you. I'm inspired by everything that you do, which is just, amazing and keeps me on my toes as an artist. So thank you so much for, agreeing to come and talk to folks today and share.
Awesome. I'm excited. Thanks so much for giving me the opportunity.
So we're going to jump right into the questions and just start talking. I want people to kind of get a sense, because I don't know if you consider yourself someone who's an art journaler or not. So the question I always ask is, what brought you to art journaling? So take that question in whatever direction you want to take it.
Well, I was thinking about art journaling. I do art journaling, but I probably have only been doing it since about 2012. I found my sketchbook from college. I think this was from Barnes and Noble's, but I looked through it just from an art journaling standpoint, and I kind of found some stuff where I had glued pages and written and sketched, and it was kind of a neat, back in time. I graduated college in 2000, but then I kind of felt like we had to keep a sketchbook. I went to art school, so that was part of it. But looking at this and kind of remembering, it really was more like art journaling. I was putting in pictures, I was doodling around them, I was writing about things that were happening, I was building layers, but it was in such a confined, must-be sketchbook. And I struggled with that concept at the time. And I really wanted to get back into art journaling or sketchbooks, and I was seeing a lot of it going out there. So in 2012, this is kind of the predecessor to my daily moleskine. I did this little moleskine, page a day, where it's a whole calendar. And that's really neat because just looking at this, this day in March is when Elliot got glasses.
Oh, wow.
So, and to do a little memory and a drawing and glue moments in from that month was a lot of fun. And that really started me probably in 2012 on my whole art journaling kind of journey. And I really use art journaling for two things. I use one to kind of write stories and kind of explore who I am, and the other to layer paint and just get messy and be free.
Yeah. No, I think that's how I found you, is through your daily moleskine on Instagram. I love art that's happening in a moleskine. I'm just fascinated by both art and moleskines, and so I put those two together and I'm enthralled for hours. I can sit and look at it. And I think that's how I found you on Instagram. And that what you're saying, the storytelling through through your art, and then just like the experimentation. I think that's what drew me to yours, because sometimes your sketches will be very intentional and they'll be, it's of something. And then other times it's a piece of collage art or things you put together, and I'm experimenting with this new product or here. And I love that you combine those into one little journal and you don't try to, you know, force yourself to do it one way. So that's definitely what brought me, what caught my attention about your work. So then as you started looking back at that 2012 journal, do you see a progression of your work? Like, can you see distinctly when things started to change for what your artistic style looks like?
Oh, definitely. Like, looking at that, it was more about trying to figure out the right way to capture memories, which sounds crazy when I say it right now, but I just felt like, oh, I need to get precisely like little illustrations that represent what I'm saying or what I'm feeling. And really now I'm really more focused on just the expressive nature of it. So, you know, if I have a good day or a bad day, or something awesome happens at work, I don't have to like draw a little picture of, I got a bigger coffee than what I paid for. You know, it can just be like emotional experience, you know, more abstract. And I really enjoy that process of just creating and being free.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so happy you said that, because I think a lot of our viewers, people who watch these interviews, are at different stages in their artistic practice. And for those who are at the very beginning, just starting to dabble, just starting to see all the amazing people that are out there documenting their life in this way. Because I was like this, I came to it and I was like, it has to be like if it's about coffee, I have to draw a coffee cup. And so I think I'm so happy you said that, because it is sometimes just about what you felt when you got that coffee, not the actual coffee itself. And so I hope those people who are listening, who are still in that space of like, I have to draw it exactly, and it has to, you know, word for word be what, you know, what I want it to be. I hope they will start to think about how they can just express what they're feeling, or what that thing made them feel, or what the day made them feel.
Well, I think for me, it really is that all different types of art are valid. Some days, as we were talking about in my little mini journal, I do draw. Like, I love drawing coffee cups, but in a really expressive, like neon pinks and greens, and the feeling when I get an awesome cup of coffee and get to hang out and do some art while I sit there. And so really illustrative styles, yes, they work. Really expressive styles, yes, they work. But the freedom that it's not right or wrong, that it can be anything in the spectrum.
Well, tell us then what your creative process looks like. Like, what does a day of creating look like for you?
Let's see, typically so when I wake up in the morning and I'm like, I want to go down to the studio, because I typically have a long list of projects or deadlines or work I want to do for myself, or shows I'm trying to get into. Typically I need to clean the house first because I'm like, I can't look at all this mess. I need like order, like not in my studio, as you can see. But like order in the house, it feels like it gives me permission. So what I figured out how to do, because obviously if I start cleaning the whole house, I'm never going to make it to the studio. So I pick like one or two things, like if the kitchen needs to be cleaned up or if laundry needs to be put away, I'll give myself permission, I guess, to do one of those things and then feel okay with it. It's part of my process, which is good because the house gets cleaner. But then I'm like, okay, you did that. Check. Now go on and, you know, and be free. So I guess it's kind of putting the ordered things first. I also like to have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea with me in the studio. It's kind of comforting and warm. And then I'll put all of my materials out and figure out what I want to work on and just kind of let go. I like to work in an intuitive way. So if I'm art journaling or if I'm doing a piece for a show, I kind of just lay out all the possibilities and then just allow the process to happen.
When you say you lay out all the possibilities, say a little more about that. What do you mean by you lay out all the possibilities?
So if I'm working in my art journal, so that's a good example, I'll lay out, you know, 6 or 7 colors that are just kind of speaking to me at that time, but I don't have to use all of those. I'll also kind of get my box of ephemera and little pieces of paper out, and I'll pick through it and pick like a little pile that would go with any of those colors. And then I have a bunch of materials within arm's reach. Water-soluble markers and pencils and watercolor and acrylic paint and inks. And then I just kind of like stack them according to the colors I feel like working with, and then just go. So I'll just pick up a random paint and start, and then allow the process to continue from that point, and just allow myself permission to use anything in that area.
Awesome. Okay. That helps. So now I'm thinking about just what I know from watching your YouTube channel and following you on Instagram and reading your captions. I believe you have 2 studios, a home studio and a studio outside. Can you talk a little bit about how that works? Like, what is that like for you to have those 2 different spaces? And do you have multiple supplies in both? Do you have duplicates? Like, what does that look like for you?
So my home studio is really where I do a lot of my mixed media or art journaling work. So I have all this stuff. It's really crazy and busy in here. I have I actually have 2 sides to the studio. Excuse me. The side the side behind me is all of my papers and things. So let me show you. I have like boxes of like this kind of stuff. And then this area right here, which you can't see, right to my immediate right, is where I kind of stage my work. So finished work or work that needs to be framed, I put there. Also any art supplies that are brand new that I've ordered or want to test out, I put over here. And it's kind of like a on deck place. And then area over here to my left is where I have all my acrylic paint and where I do jelly printing. I have a big drawer over there where I keep all my finished work and all my in progress work and all my stencils. And then behind my door, which is way over there, I hang canvases, but I can only hang, like to paint on, I can only hang like 30 by 30 or smaller. So that's where my downtown studio comes into play. There's where I really paint. So when I really started getting into large, like abstract work or really like large expressive work, there just isn't room in this space to kind of be free and have that arm's breadth. So I got space downtown, which has been awesome because it gives me a whole entire room dedicated to that. I have a giant wall where a door isn't in my way because a lot of the times in the studio, I'd be working and my son would come in and like knock into me because I'm right behind the door. So it was a new area being revitalized. So the studio rent was fairly inexpensive and it was giving me the opportunity to be with other artists and have a place to paint. So there I do have a duplicate set of almost all the acrylic paints I have here, but nothing else. It's really just painting, paint brushes, sponge brushes, and those kinds of things, and blank canvases. That's where I keep a lot of those. The awesome thing is it also gets me out into the community. So I meet people there when we're open on First Friday, and it allows me to talk about art. And it's interesting because I have a lot of people coming in and looking at my work, which is very colorful and expressive. And they say like, oh, I'd love to be able to do something like that. Or, oh, I've always wanted to do art. And it gives me opportunity to talk to them about my process, to talk to them about the classes I teach at the Art Center, which is local here, and say, you can do this. You know, just learning how to listen to yourself is really all you need.
Learning how to listen to yourself. Oh my God, that is so powerful. I just have to repeat that because I think for a lot of people just starting out, and maybe even some who've been doing, I feel like I'm in the middle of the spectrum. Like I'm not just starting, but I definitely have not reached a place where I have a body of work in terms of book art, but in terms of my moving more towards like, I have a stack of canvases that I keep saying, okay, I'm just going to try. I'm going to take what I do in my book art and do it on my canvas. And then I look at it, I'm like, no, I'm just going to go back to a piece of paper, right? And so I have this moment. So I'm working in that direction. Not because I want to, I don't know that I'm going in the direction of like fine art, gallery work, that kind of thing. But I think I just want to nudge myself to try something different. The paper versus the canvas, right? They're very different. They live in different planes, on different planes. You know, the paper lives here, canvas lives up here. And so people who are kind of in that space of just starting, hearing the words, listen to yourself is so powerful. And I think people who are further along, remembering to still listen to yourself, even if you've got people buying your art and now you're thinking, oh, I have to make what people like. No, you should still listen to yourself, right? I think that message resonates throughout the spectrum of where we are in our practice. So thank you for saying that.
No problem. I really feel like people want to connect with, or if you're selling your work, buy your passion. So it is very easy because I'm also a designer. It's very easy to allow myself to bleed into like what's in the market, what will people like, what's hot right now, and really pulling myself back to this isn't about that. My creative work is about expressing myself, enjoying it, having a place of freedom, and allowing the true me to be shown. And so I'm always reminding myself that it doesn't matter if I do more work every single day or tons of work. I always have to remember that, because it's easy to kind of lean towards, but I want to sell it. But you will. If it's truly you, people will resonate with that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Thank you for saying that. Now, something you said a second ago about having a space downtown outside of your house, a studio lets you connect to people, other artists, community. Talk a little bit about the importance of that. Like, what do you think is the importance of being able to be in conversation with other creative people outside of just, working in isolation?
Mm-hmm. It gets you. So a lot of us look at Pinterest and Instagram and all the social media. And the interesting thing about that is you can't see size typically, or some of the expressive lines, or truly connect and talk to somebody. Like, you can message back and forth, but it's different to be in person and kind of get out into the community. From a studio standpoint, there's so many different types of artists. So there's a photographer and sculptors and people that do work with assemblage and found object, and talking to them and seeing their work in person and getting the scale and the sense of their hands on it really has helped me think differently about composition and color and the way I approach my work. So it's kind of helped inform and push me, because it challenges what you think is right, or how to build composition. When you see somebody put assemblage pieces together and you can see the lines and the volume and the size, and it's just really neat.
Yeah. No, thank you. That's good. So then let's talk a little bit about, so we've heard about your creative process and what that looks like. We heard that you have your mixed media art that you do there at home. Some of it includes art journaling, and your canvas work that you do in your downtown studio. What other kinds of art do you do, or have you done?
Well, I am a designer, so I'm a creative director in corporate America. So I do web design and print design and social media design. And so that's a whole art form in of itself, because it's really about communicating a need and communicating the right thing. So I spend a lot of time thinking about audience and expressing through visual communication and composition, and drawing someone through a piece and getting them to understand the information. I do translate that, the structure of that, I translate that into my fine art, which is a really interesting thing. I kind of fight against that as well. To be unstructured, I feel like I'm very like neat and ordered. And then when I do my art, I want it to be like, I want to be messy. Yeah. So that's interesting, but they do inform each other. I also teach classes. So I'm teaching, I don't do a lot of it or show a lot of it, but I'm teaching like abstract watercolor and caustic painting, which I've just recently gotten into. So that's building, different, very transparent layers and very opaque layers. And that's kind of also informing what I'm doing.
Oh, I love it. So your teaching, do you primarily teach in person? Do you have online classes you teach? Aside from the fact that you're teaching with Journey Within.
Yeah, in December. I do teach other online classes. So I've been in 21 Secrets, both the spring edition, which is tools and techniques, and the fall edition, which is about to come out. I believe it starts tomorrow. I'm doing a giveaway right now on my Instagram for it. And it is all about color, which like fits exactly like what I love to do. I also taught in Creative Jumpstart last year. And I'm looking at potential other classes I can't quite talk about yet. I'm also teaching, I'm doing one on my own. So I've been putting that together. It's going to be really focused on art journaling and using old books. And there's going to be a whole bunch of ephemera in it. It's going to be really cool. So yeah, I love online stuff.
Yeah, cool. Okay, good. So we'll make sure that everybody has the links to get to all those things you just described, because I can't tell you all, I really toiled around putting Tori at the end of the year, because I really want her lesson like today. Like, I want to look at it now. And so, but she's in December. and it's going to be like a little bit of a holiday gift to have Tori's class show up for us in December. She's our guest artist for Journey Within. So, all right. So then we will make sure folks know how to get to all those places in your website, and they'll be able to find you. And anybody who's in your local area, hopefully will be able to come and take an actual class. I keep paying attention to your when you announce the courses that you're teaching live in person. I'm like, okay, how can I get there? How can I get up there to Indiana and take it? You're in Indiana, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, Indiana.
Yeah. So I'm always looking at what can I do to get up to Indiana? So I'm thinking about it. So tell me what kind of art inspires you? Like what's on your Pinterest boards, and what are the things who do you follow on Instagram that just really, I mean, you don't have to give us specifics, but like what kind of art inspires you?
On Instagram, I follow a bunch of people. I follow you, obviously. I love the books that you make. They inspire me because I have a whole giant pile of sketchbooks that I bought, like huge. You can't even see them on camera, they're that big. But the books I made in Journey Within are really more special because they really almost are like little works of art in themselves. So that inspires me, and I love like all the little tutorials and classes and all the things that you do. Erin Faith Allen, I've been kind of following her. She does really expressive, like from the gut. She talks about that a lot, like from your guts things, and just kind of her history. And they're a little like dark, but there's also light in them. I'm also watching By Bun. Her stuff is a lot of fun. It's very like layered and storytelling and weird little creatures and things like that. Mab, who is an artist that is kind of really big on Instagram. She actually lives here in Indiana, so I get to run into her every once in a while. She does like very whimsical illustrative work. Mab Graves.
Oh, I follow her.
Yeah, small world. So that's from an Instagram, and there's tons more I'm probably forgetting right now. But Art and Whimsy, she's one. She uses a lot of stencils. Stencils really interest me. I'm actually on the design team for the Crafters Workshop right now, and it's really neat because that's kind of almost outside of my comfort zone. I went through a whole phase with stencils, and then like I stopped using them. I don't know why, and this has really gotten me back into it and like building textures, and it's just really interesting to me. So she uses a lot of them and a lot of color, poppy color. Pinterest, I pin a lot of things that are almost sculptural and like found object because I like the idea of reusing materials and kind of finding new uses for old things. A lot of art journaling. I love like big expressive illustration with writing in it, which I do a lot, but I like to see how other people interpret it. I have a vegan food board. And really food, like culinary arts is really, I love the presentation of that. And I think that also translates because like composing a plate, it's interesting how you can find inspiration in kind of weird places like that.
I agree with you. I'm super inspired by people's handwriting. And I think I'm inspired by a lot of different things, but I think the other thing that's kind of odd is I am so drawn to art that has geometric shapes as sort of the foundation of it. It might be my Capricorn brain of like things must be in order. So I really like, I'm like literally I'm mesmerized by things that are artistic, but there's a geometric shape of pattern or something there. So yeah, I think we all have a thing that draws us in, for sure. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Did you want to add some more before we?
Well, I was just, as you were talking about geometric shape, I was thinking like, oh, that makes so much, because you make books, which are very ordered, but it's interesting to me because then in them, it gets really expressive. So it's like you get the best of both worlds. That's really awesome.
Oh, I hadn't even thought about it that way. And I have to sit with that for a little bit. Yeah, no, that is true. It is a very ordered, which is probably why I'm so drawn to it as an art form. Yeah. So let me ask you about one of the things so just so everybody kind of knows, give you a little bit of context. I got to meet Tori in person, and we talked about a lot of different things, art and fountain pens and art supplies and all sorts of things, and life and family and eating, vegan food and vegetarianism. And we talked about a lot of things. It was really awesome. And one of the things that was really amazing is Tori gave me an art bento box. She brought it to me all the way from Indiana, and I was very excited to get it. And so I want you to talk a little bit about that. And obviously I want you to like tell us about it, but I also want to know what prompted that. Like what made you decide this was a thing you wanted to share with the world? Because it's pretty awesome. And if you guys don't know about the art bento box, I'll have some notes for you down below. You can go and check it out. So tell us a little bit about the art bento box and what it all means.
So subscription boxes have like blown up in the last few years, and I started getting Birchbox and Ipsy and like makeup boxes and jewelry boxes and clothing boxes. It was kind of insane. I also got art snacks, which I kind of am on again, off again with them. I currently have their subscription. I'm excited about their next box because it has an ink in it, like a limited edition ink. But looking at all these subscription box, and I have since canceled all the makeup ones because you can only have so much makeup. Like it got crazy. But the art ones I keep looking at, and I thought what was kind of missing is I felt like I was just getting a lot of art supplies and they were just piling up. They were sitting in the boxes. I didn't know what to do with them. I mean, I knew what to do with them, but it's almost like you can have so many pencils and markers before you're just like, okay, enough's enough. And so I looked at the opportunity that there was kind of a gap in the market of how do I get supplies, not only like paint and pencils and markers, but also paper and ephemera. I love like history and tactile and color beyond just normal traditional mediums. So I wanted to kind of combine those things and give also some exclusive things. Like I've done an exclusive stencil, and I'm going to have a really awesome foam stamp in the December box. So that's going to be cool. But then also give some tutorial. So it's almost like a mixed media box, which I haven't really seen any others on the market. And I like to share, like, how do you do something with this box? Like, let's do a project together. Let's explore the mediums and give me some information on how do I use a water-soluble marker with a water-soluble crayon together. And just allow people to experiment and explore and kind of give them a jump start into creating.
Yeah, nice. I think that's what, because I knew about the bento box and I didn't know until you gave me mine, I didn't know there was a video that I could go watch to show me. And I think when I went, after you gave me the box, I went and I kind of Googled it, and I actually found you and then maybe a couple other people who were showing what they made with their bento box. I can't remember the names of the people, but there were maybe two others that came up that I think probably subscribed to it, and they were showing what they had made. So it's like, oh, there's a community around this. I got to get in on this. So I really love that about it. But also the thing so yes, what you're doing, I don't see anybody else doing. Like, here's the stuff, and here's also how I'm using it and what you could do, and like a jump start or a spark to help you kind of get started with the supplies that are in there. And the other thing I don't see anybody doing is the way that you have it set up, right? So not every box is identical. There are certain things in the box that everybody gets, and then there's like the section that is going to be different for each person. So say a little bit about that and what made you decide to do it that way? Because I think it's brilliant, actually.
Thanks. Well, I was thinking about how could I make a box work where I'm going to do some kind of a class or tutorial and make it approachable. And so I felt like I needed to have a series of materials in the box that everybody got. So I kind of set it up like a bento box, which is a Japanese like lunch box where it has little compartments where that's kind of the main course. And then that's what everybody gets. And then there's fruit and vegetables, which is kind of variety is the spice of life. So you get a little something different. So it could be a different color or different size, or, you know, not crazy variation, but like the ephemera has a lot of variation because it's original, like historical ephemera. And then usually there's some kind of dessert. So something special, whether it's a washi tape or some kind of pencil. Like one of the desserts I had in one of the previous boxes was a rainbow pencil. So it was a traditional graphite pencil, but it was actually from England. And this guy named Duncan invented it, where the paper, it's wrapped in recycled paper, but they're dyed to be a rainbow. So when you sharpen it, you get rainbows coming off of it. So that was kind of the dessert item, just something a little different and fun that you just can't go, you know, to your local art store and buy. It's really interesting too doing the video because I have to be extra creative as well. I'm kind of looking at this box. I want it to feel like a good mixed media box that you can use for multiple things, and then making the project kind of really approachable or informational or something you may not have thought of, and kind of figuring out how to use all those supplies in like a way that would be exciting to somebody. I also, I do it quarterly because I felt like that gives you enough time to get the box and have the time to kind of experience it, and you just don't have stuff piling up on you.
Yeah. So at the beginning of each quarter, there's a new box, or how do you, like, is it always January, April? Like, is it always on the same schedule?
It's I think it's at the end of the quarter. Let's see, it's March, June. Yeah, I think it's like seasonal, so it's spring. So when kind of spring hits is when you get the box, and it might like feel very springy. I put like brighter colors in there. And then I have autumn, summer, and winter. So the winter box is going to ship December 5th. I think there's about 30 of them left right now. But it's going to be kind of chock full of stampy stuff and paper and a lot of kind of things you could use to make a gift or be a good gift for somebody. So I try and, not totally theme them. Like the last box that came out for summer was watercolor, but it has a little breath to it. So you couldn't only do watercolor with it. So that's kind of my goal, is to get people to experience new materials and new mediums, but also make it broad at the same time.
Gotcha. Awesome. Okay. So what folks need to do, so is it, just for clarification, do I sign up one time and get the box each time it comes out, or do I sign up individually each quarter? How does it work for me, the consumer, signing up?
I sell them off my Etsy page. So I have 4 different listings for them. So you can buy them all, like all 4. And then I put you, and since it's Etsy, how it works is you'll buy them, let's say for next year, for 2017, and I'll ship you the spring box on time, but then your name falls off the list. I put you on a spreadsheet, so then I know that you get each one. So that's kind of subscribing. Some people buy them as one-off. That's an option too. So really whatever works. I kind of found that doing it on my Etsy page is a little less, since I only do 50 of them, they're kind of limited edition. It's a little less management that way, because then they're just taken care of, shipping happens, and all that lovely Etsy stuff.
Yeah, well, that's good for people to know. It's a limited edition, people. There's only 50. When they're gone, they're gone. So, so make sure you get in if you want to see those. And I am thinking now too, the box that I have, there's enough stuff in there. Like, even though Tori's talking about projects, there's actually enough stuff in there for multiple projects, right? There's because I still, my paint, like if I do the one project, I still have a whole tube of paint left, right? And then I think for the postcards, I kind of am hoarding those, treating them very special. But I think I'm going to take them with me to Barcelona. I have a trip coming up, so I'll probably do something while I'm there, little tiny sketches, and mail them home. I might mail them back home to myself. We'll see.
That's a neat idea.
So we'll see, but they're pretty special. So for those of you that are, listening, definitely make sure you check out the Art Bento Box. It's a really neat, cool idea. And I think I love that Tori she hand packages them. They're, she's not shipping them off to somebody else to do. She's actually doing them. And so that's another beautiful part of the process too. So now talk a little bit about, I'm probably going to get the name wrong, so correct me if I say it wrong. Coffee, Tea, and Art?
That's right. Okay. Yeah.
Got it. So Tori has this new series on YouTube that she's doing called Coffee, Tea, and Art. And it is just it's so unique and different the way that you do it. I literally look forward to, I'm like, oh, there's a new one out. Let me go watch it. And I love that your son was on the latest one. What a cutie pie he is. And it was so fun to watch you all interact and to watch him teaching us how to draw a face. Like, that was just great. So tell us a little bit about the Coffee, Art, and Tea series.
So I got the idea for Coffee, Tea, and Art because I back a lot of Kickstarters, and I try a lot of new art projects. And just to kind of, I also, like I said, love to draw coffee cups. And I love tea and coffee, like a lot, like probably too much. So I was like, wouldn't it be fun to kind of share some of the inspiring things that I find or run across, or materials? my husband, who's usually behind the camera, he edits all of the videos you ever see me do. So he edits our Bento Box videos. I wanted to get him in front of the camera and he was really hesitant. He was like, I don't be on camera. But I think we have good rapport, and he's also an artist. He does animation and obviously video editing is an art form, but he also does illustration. He's doing the daily drawing along with me. And so
fun. I just noticed that he's doing it as well. It's like, how cool is this?
So I thought it would be cool to kind of do it together as kind of a family project, and to share with each other our art excitement and kind of build on that, and then share it out to the public on YouTube. And also, you know, talk about the awesome teas I run into and the coffees that I drink. And actually the next episode, which we're going to shoot next week, because we're going to be in New York, we're going to be at a craft coffee fair in New York. So we're going to kind of shoot on location. So that's a little sneak peek there.
Nice.
So it'll be very cool.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. When I watched the first episode, I was thinking, you know, I'm kind of a tea snob. I don't drink coffee. I used to be like hardcore coffee every day, 4 times a day. Like, it was really bad. And I had to wean myself off. And the way I weaned myself off was to move more towards tea. And then tea became my medicine in a lot of ways. Like, I drink a lot of herbal teas and so, you know, I feel like I've tried everything from the Liptons all the way up to the, like, you know, $10 a bag type tea, you know. And I'm a little bit of a tea snob. And so I was like, well, we're going to see what kind of tea Tori's talking about here. And I have to say, I think it was the very first episode, you mentioned a tea I'd never heard of. I was like, yes, somebody who can, like, keep me on my toes. Now I got to go research this tea. So I was really, I was excited about that. And then there's always a little treat too. Like, there's always like a little, like, I think on one of the episodes you shared a vegan cupcake recipe that, you know, you guys had made these cupcakes. So I love that it's a little bit of everything. It's like art and life. Like, it's not just the coffee, not just the tea, not just the art. There's a little bit of everything. And then bringing your husband and your son into it, I think, just add such a special element to that. I've never even thought about getting Damon on camera. He probably would be like, really, what am I going to say to people about art or books? Or I love that. So guys, if you are listening and watching this, I'm linking down below to Tori's series. You've got to go watch it. I think right now you've got 4 of them up there.
Yep.
And they're just really, they're different than anything else I watch on YouTube, and I watch a lot of YouTube channels. And so thank you for bringing something fresh and new to the mix, to the collection of things that we have available to watch. Speaking of Kickstarter, tell people a little bit, because I think so far you guys have shown me things from Kickstarter that I'm just like, I didn't even know this category existed on Kickstarter. So talk a little bit about that, because you guys have backed books, and I think some notebooks, I think, was another thing. So talk a little bit about the Kickstarter, how you find these people on Kickstarter, and what you do there in terms of backing folks.
Kickstarters, there's so many different websites like Kickstarter now. I think Indiegogo is one of them. I backed one thing on there. I like Kickstarter a lot because I think it might be one of the oldest, and they have a lot of video and, like, really get into the story of the people, like, and what are they trying to do and what are they trying to experience, what are they trying to put out in the world. And I do back a lot of art ones. Chris, my husband, backs he does art too, but more technology as well. But I've gotten multiple art books, an original piece of work from Molly Crabapple. She's an artist in New York. I got one of her illustrations. She was putting together a show kind of as a commentary on society and politics. And gosh, that was probably 6 years ago now. But it's really neat to really back artists in a different way and hear their story, and then get from them, you know, a new tutorial or a new way of thinking about work. And you also kind of get to connect with them. A lot of them usually have tiers where you can have a conversation online or get a personal note from them. So it's really neat to, like, almost bridge gaps, like, through technology. It's a lot of fun, and you run into some really awesome stuff. So yeah, there's a whole category for art and illustration and the creative endeavors.
Yeah, I have to go find it, because I always get to Kickstarter based on someone posting something on Instagram saying, here's what I'm doing, it's on Kickstarter, go check it out. And so I never actually clicked type in Kickstarter.com and just see what's there in general. I'm always following a specific link to somebody's thing that I'm going to back. So I have to try that now. Just go to Kickstarter and see what else is there. I never even thought of it from that perspective. So until I started watching your series, and I was like, oh, there must be a way to get to all these artists that she's talking about on Kickstarter. So yeah.
Yeah, they have them all categorized. I use it on my phone a lot. Once you start to kind of back stuff, and they kind of gear all of your stuff you see right away towards you, kind of like Amazon does. Well, you bought this book and these are all the 50 books that you'd like, kind of a thing. So then you can run into a lot of really interesting projects.
Okay, I didn't even know there was an app for the phone. See, that's what I'm saying. I just go to the one thing I'm trying to back, I back it, and I'm out.
That can be good too. It gets a little dangerous.
Okay, so before we go, I want to talk about a couple more things, but one really important piece that I want you to share here is, you mentioned it a little bit. You talked about how you are a designer in corporate America, and so I want you to talk a little bit about what it's like to be both a full-time employee somewhere and a full-time artist, because I consider you a full-time artist. I look at what you're doing, I'm like, there's no way this is not full-time. So maybe even also tell us how you got an extra 40 hours in your week that we don't have. So yeah, a little bit about how you're making both of those worlds work for you.
So the design aspect of my world, like I said, I'm a creative director in corporate America, which means I work for a company that is a financial services company, and I have a whole team. There's 20 designers that essentially like report up to me, and they're kind of layered almost like an agency, like you'd see on Mad Men. So I have like art directors and senior designers and just designers kind of starting out of college. And it's a lot of fun, like developing people and growing people and looking at how they're being creative and kind of pushing them along. And I kind of came up through that. So I started as senior designer, and I've kind of been promoted up to managing the entire team. And it's a lot of fun. Obviously, it's 40 plus hours work because you're managing people. Like right now, it's budget season, so we're planning 2017, and it's crazy because I'm trying to finish up the year and start a whole new year and all that. Yeah. But it really actually informs the creative work I do from a teaching standpoint. So since I spend a lot of my time mentoring designers and other people through their career, I kind of translate that over into mentoring people when I'm teaching them either in person or online classes. And I kind of have learned to break things down to very simple language and explanation. I remember I teach other like kind of workshops in Indy, and one of them was a mixed media junk journal where we put a lot of kind of junk mail that we had gotten into a book and then did a spread in it. And one of the ladies asked me, because she'd never done it, she was there with her friend, she asked me, how do I put paint on the page? And I'm like, okay, and it's like that almost takes you back for a second, because you just expect like, oh, people can do that. But some people really don't know. So just trying to break that down to explain it, to say, well, here's my process. I take a little bit of white and I blop it. I take a little bit of color and I blop it. And then I just start to be free and kind of move it and flow it around the page. And she was like, oh, and like off and running. But that's very similar to what I do like day to day of, how do I make this thing look good? Or how do I present my work at a meeting? Just really breaking it down. As far as time management, that does get a little crazy. I do try and sleep.
That's good.
Really, it's just being very organized. I think being a designer, and I've been in my design career, since 2000. So 16 years now, I've had a lot of practice like organizing plans and production schedules and just managing my time and work. And that's really helped me kind of be able to compartmentalize like the coffee, tea, and art, and the art bento box, and my daily work, and the classes I'm teaching and prepping. And I just break them up into little steps. I think adding the crafters workshop and then also doing blogs twice a month. And then I also started a blog. I might be right at the edge. We'll see.
I was just going to say, my next question to you is, when you hear yourself saying it all, are you kind of like amazed at how you're able to, because I'm listening to you like, our bento box, your daily moleskin, your own art, your gallery art that you do. Like, I'm listening to you listed, and I'm just like, how on earth do you make it happen? But I hear organized, schedule, keeping it all kind of compartmentalized. I love it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah, I also am on the board at the Indianapolis Arts Center on their communications board, so I've been meeting with them. So it is like when they ask me like, okay, we want to meet 3 Thursdays from now, I have to look at 3 different calendars. And I'm like, wait, okay, I'm open. Yeah, it is scheduling everything out and then just, being committed to it. But I think like doing my own art, it's something that I'm so passionate about and sharing it that it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah.
So that really helps.
Yeah. Well, I'm thanking you for making time, for getting us in your schedule for this, because I'm serious. I look at what you do, and then before I met you in person, I actually didn't know you had a full-time job somewhere. And so when you told me that, I was like, how on earth? Like, what? How are you getting these extra hours that the rest of us aren't getting? So it's good. So folks out there who, I wanted you to talk a little bit about that, because I think there are people in the art community who still work full-time. That's their bread and butter. That's how they support their families. And so I think it's important for them to hear how you can balance both. You can do both, and just, what you need to do that. And I think we have people talk about that a little bit, but I just wanted you, because I feel like you're fully immersed in that, and I wanted you to share your process. So thank you. So Tori, let's talk for the last couple questions here. Let's talk art. Specifically, I'd love to see some of your any art you want to show us, whatever you want to show us today, whether it's art journaling or something else. And then obviously I want to finish with having you show us your favorite supplies that you use. And then we'll have one last question before we go off at the end. So any art you want to show us, that would be awesome. And I'm going to I think I'm going to try to put you in a little spotlight here, so it's not just really big.
So I'm going to show you 3 different art journals, essentially. And they're all kind of different. So I can kind of talk to you about, like, when I talked in the beginning about I use it for either expressive play or storytelling. I'm going to show you 2 storytelling examples. So this is my junk journal that has like random stuff. There's a spread that I did. But this is really like postcards that came to my house. There's one, and old calendar pages, and old like pieces of like roll-off painting is just basically taped in. Nice. So that's kind of a storytelling example where I use imagery and kind of build like an expressive page. And then usually it's the figure and her story. So I use these to kind of explore myself. So I'm adopted, and I don't have any family history, or I know nothing. I did one of those 23andMe things. And basically, I don't know, I'm not connected to anybody, so I must be an alien or something. But this kind of allows me to kind of give myself a history in some like creative way. I also, this is like a bot journal. I like to do art journaling like this, where I usually do some kind of background that's abstract and then do an illustration over it and then like write within it. So those are a lot of fun. My moleskin, there we go, which is crazy thick right now. There's so many different variations. So kind of really just collage and paint and color exploration. There's another one of those kind of background with illustration over it. Weird bug illustration next to an abstract piece. It kind of just becomes so many different things. I've been doing a lot of abstract work lately, but I do this a lot where I'll have like leftovers. That was yesterday's. And then I'll put like leftover little bits and scraps from projects I'm working in and just kind of explore them in a different way than what they were used in the project. So these little scraps actually came from these more fine art pieces I was doing. So it was the trimmings. And so that became like a whole little abstract piece. So I really find kind of interesting, and I might do a bigger piece on that. So I kind of use that for that. And the last one this is a See White of Brighton book. So it has 140-pound paper in it. And I like that it doesn't have a spiral, it's hardbound, but it also lays flat. So these are like really long spreads. that are really kind of that expressive freedom and play. So I've just started this art journal, but the couple of spreads I've done in here, and this is kind of like one of the ones I promo, this is like a self-portrait.
Wow.
So they're a lot of fun to do. And I really like really thick, like mixed media paper. And especially if you can find like a perfect bound book that lays flat, that's like bonus awesome. So I got this on Amazon. It's from Europe.
Nice. Okay, I'm writing that down. What's the name of that one? It
is Sea White of Brighton.
Awesome. We'll link to it below, folks. So since I have you really big here in the spotlight, why don't you share with us your favorite art supplies?
Okay, I have a whole bunch here. I love using gesso in my work. And I do use, I have a bunch of them. I use golden. I love golden. This gesso is really, really opaque and thick and chalky. And so if I'm covering anything or really want like a really white, like if I'm doing details of white, I will use that gesso. It also waters down really nicely to do a wash. This is not a paid advertisement, but the Crafters Workshop ones, they just came out with a gold gesso.
Ooh.
And they have a really nice black one, and then they have a white one. This white one is different. It's a little bit like smoother. It's almost like cream. So it doesn't have like the grittiness that golden has, but it goes on. It also gives you a really nice wash, but I'm super excited about the gold one because it has the same kind of coverage as a normal gesso, but it has that metallic flake. Okay. So as you water that down, you get like little metallic bits in it as well, which is awesome. And then like black gesso, I use whenever I want to kind of tint things or darken things down. This whole spread here was done with like black and white gesso and black and white ephemera. So just kind of exploring lights and darks is a lot of fun, and gesso goes a long way, so they're really awesome to use. I also am really into, I have a lot of these little Blick paints because of the size are a lot of fun. I can carry them with me and travel with them, and they just have like every color of the rainbow, and they're inexpensive, which is awesome. I'm planning, since I'm going to New York next week, I'm planning on stopping at Blick and like picking up some additional colors. So I'm really excited about that. I also am really liking these like liquid acrylic from Golden. They have a really nice transparent quality, and they really like glow. A lot of Golden's colors do that. And then F&W acrylic ink. It's interesting because a lot of people would be like, well, what's the difference between these two? This is really like, you can get dark darks and transparent, where a lot of these are just really transparent, even with how intense this color is. When I lay this on over color, I can smooth it out to almost like a, just like a wash of color, and it like is really warm and kind of just tints things a little bit. So those are a lot of fun. I talk a lot about glue sticks. Whenever I do a video like this, Pioneer glue, definitely my favorite. I have a whole like bag of them here. It's kind of crazy because whenever I see them at Michael's, I buy like all of them. Sorry about that. Anybody looking for these?
I've never seen that, and I'm so shocked. I feel like as a book artist, I've seen every glue stick there is on the planet. I've never seen that one, so now I'm on a hunt.
Yeah, it glues. It's like super crazy. So it dries clear. It's non-toxic, obviously acid-free. And it glues like wood together, paper, like everything. So it's crazy.
Okay.
And it's a permanent bond. That's what it says. I've been kind of experimenting with pan pastels. So I have this, I like how they stack too. They kind of just like screw together. They're a lot of fun for like shading. And I got into encaustic work, and they're a lot of fun in encaustic. They like kind of really smooth. They're almost like ink for wax. So they like just blend on and they become this transparent color. So they're a lot of fun. Of course, Pitt pens. I have like a whole jar of them. And then I have a couple of crinked markers in here in black and in white, because you can get like really expressive and fun with crink. They're pretty expensive, which is why I only have black and white, but they last a really long time, and they put out like a really thick paint. And then probably from a tool standpoint, I have a favorite brush. which I've had for years, and I like keep washing it and using it, but I like do everything with this brush. You can see how like beat up it is. I really like flat brushes because you can get a really sharp edge, or you can do a lot of coverage with them. So typically, unless I'm doing detail work, I'm using a flat a flat squared off brush.
Okay.
And then the other tools I use a lot are these little palette knives, which you can get these in plastic as well, but these are a lot of fun for kind of smearing paint and getting thick and texture, and then a brayer. And this is a pretty inexpensive one, and it's small. I like that because you can get like details, especially on big jelly plates, or I even use the brayer just straight in my art journal to kind of smear paint around.
Nice.
So I know it's a lot. Those are my favorite things.
I mean, that is beautiful, especially, I love it when people can show me tools and things I've not seen before. Not that I feel like I've seen everything, but I feel like I've seen a lot of stuff. I have way more stuff in my studio than I probably will ever use, which is probably a sign to me I need to, give some stuff away. But I love the Pioneer glue sticks. I love that that's something I've never seen. And I don't know that I've ever used, I'm pretty sure I haven't, a crank. I think you're the only person I've ever seen actually use them. So can you say a little bit more about what they are, what they do, why they're different, why you like them?
Yeah, so they're a permanent marker, and they have like a really thick, like inky, painty surface in there, and they're metal. So they're metal body and they're metal tipped.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So it has a roller ball, and essentially you press down and it pushes that roller ball up, and then the paint ink comes down, and then you can like draw. But if they also draw this way because it just flows, and then you can like get drips, and they're just really like thick. A lot of street artists use them like for graffiti and like street art. But I like the intensity of black, like the really opaque black and the really opaque white. Okay. And then you just get a different kind of mark with them. They're like thick and like really bold. Okay. So they're a lot of fun.
Are they refillable?
They're not refillable.
Okay, cool.
But they seem to, like, I've had this one a year.
Oh, wow.
So they seem to last. I mean, even though the body doesn't seem that big, you can kind of see based on my hand. It's kind of like fat though. So there's a good amount of stuff in there.
Awesome.
I should look up and see if they're recyclable. They're made in the USA. Awesome. Bonus.
So Tori, thank you so much for sharing everything that you've shared with us today. You are just a gem. I love talking to you. I love watching all the amazing things that you're doing in the world. So before we leave, one last question for you. What kind of advice would you give to people who are just starting out? They're just finding art, they're just finding art journaling. What kind of advice would you give them?
I would say look around you and figure out what speaks to you, what inspires you. And it can be anything. It can be the dirty socks on the floor and the way the light's hitting them. It can be cups of coffee. It can be your family. And just start to doodle and write about that. I think for me, that's when I was just starting out. It was just about getting anything onto the page and just exploring that. And once you find something you're passionate about, then freeing yourself and being okay with yourself to like explore it further and get some paints out and get some color into it and keep writing and doodling, and it just starts to evolve. You don't have to share it with anybody. You can find other artists to share it with. There's a lot of meetup groups. I love going to meetup groups because you can connect with other people who are just starting out as well and who have been doing it for a long time. I think connecting with people is important so you don't feel like you're on a little island. And really just allowing yourself to just get it on paper.
Awesome. That's beautiful. Look around and see what inspires you. I love that. That's great advice. Tori, I hope that everybody watching can kind of see what it is that inspires me so much about what you do, just your energy and your willingness to share and all the things that you do. So thank you so much for joining us. I can't wait to share this with everybody. Mwah!
Thanks for having me. It was so much fun.
So what did you think? You ready to pick up your paintbrush and start your 365-day daily practice? Well, even if you're not, I sure hope you'll go and check Tori out in all the many places where she is inspiring me, specifically Instagram and her blog and her YouTube series. So head on over there. And if you're in the Journey Within year-long course, I can't wait to see what you create after watching Tori's lesson in December. If you're not in the Journey Within class, we sure hope you'll join us. There's still time, and you can jump right in and start making lots and lots of handmade journals and creating beautiful art to fill them. All right, wherever you are in the world and whatever you're doing, go out and create something beautiful. We'll see you back here next time. Thanks so much for watching.